You never want to be that guy to piss off the greatest baseball player ever, and that guy is Dalton Rushing. Shohei Ohtani started on the mound on Wednesday against the Minnesota Twins, and to say the least, it was eventful between
the same chemistry and not mess it up. I don't know if you saw last night, but Dalton Rushing showed up the greatest baseball player of all time multiple times, and you could tell Shohei was getting frustrated. Shohei wanted to challenge a couple strike calls, and Dalton Rushing told him not to. And on the second one, you could verbally hear.
There's one game that the guy's about, everybody's talking about, it's Shohei. Nobody, you're a backup catcher, first off.
Right.
Like, nobody should know your name as a backup catcher. Like, you should be, like, in the shadow, you should be catching your tail off.
元 MVP のジョシュ・ドナルドソンや名捕手ラッセル・マーティン、さらには殿堂入り投手ジョン・スモルツら米国野球界の重鎮たちが、ドジャースの試合で発生した大谷翔平と若手捕手ダルトンラッシングの激しい衝突劇について大激論を交わしています。普段は温厚な大谷がマウンドで見せたい例の怒りと、163、6キロの剛速球をめぐるサインミス。データ重視の現代野球において、若手捕手は絶対的なエースである大谷とどう向き合うべきだったのでしょうか。一体マウンド上で何が起きていたのか。そしてドジャースの同僚ベッツやマンシーはこの事態をどう見ていたのでしょうか。ぜひ最後までお楽しみください。
And some frustration Shohei had wanting to challenge pitches, and they weren't challenged. Well, in this second inning, there was a pitch that Shohei wanted challenged, and he had already been frustrated by something in the first inning, so he challenged himself, which he has said, I leave it up to the catchers, I trust the catchers. And you can see in the video, he quite frustratingly taps the top of his head to say he wants a challenge. Dalton Rushing behind the plate, frustrated, clearly disagreed with the challenge, kind of shakes his head, says no out of frustration. Well, guess what? Shohei Ohtani ended up being correct here. It was the right call to challenge. Shohei knew it was the right call to challenge, and Rushing told him not to do it, which I can't imagine doing. It's the greatest player ever. You're, I believe, 25 years old, a rookie behind the plate. Let Shohei do what Shohei's going to do. Anyway, Shohei ended up being right. So there was some frustration there already. And then there was another situation in the second inning where Shohei Ohtani threw the fastest pitch of his career on the mound, 101.7 miles an hour. But there was a cross-up. So Dalton Rushing didn't even end up catching the ball. It goes to the backstop, a run scores. And after the game, it was talked about. And Shohei just said, look, there were two different pitches called. Off speed was the first one, and I just started my motion as we were getting to the next pitch, which was a fastball. That's the one I wanted. But I think because my motion had started, Rushing thought I was going to throw a curveball. So it ends up going to the backstop, and then Rushing comes out to the mound from there. Shohei clearly frustrated the whole time here. Throws the pitch, run scores. You can see the frustration. There's another angle as well where you can really see the frustration getting to the plate, the frustration walking back to the mound. He gets there. Rushing then follows him out to the mound, and you can still see frustration. He kind of turns his back to him there. And then there's an angle of a close-up of the two communicating on the mound where it looks sort of intense, I guess you could say. Just clearly a lot of frustration here. Dalton Rushing also admitted after the game that he is embarrassed by the situation. He's embarrassed that he needs consoling, and it was just a whole thing. But what I do know this did, because 3 runs ended up scoring in the inning. 2 earned runs, 3 runs scored that inning, gets out of it with a strikeout. And then we got angry Shohei Ohtani on the mound and at the plate. Shohei comes up to hit in the top of the 3rd inning, drives in a run, RBI single up the middle, so helps his own cause there. Good swing on that ball, and it brings the Dodgers back within 1 run. And then he heads back out to the mound. So he had just given up 3 runs, 2 earned, just all of that frustration with Dalton Rushing, and they kind of talk it through and have their bumps there. Well, in the 3rd inning, it was just all, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it myself. And he struck out one guy, struck out the second guy, and then struck out the side. Just a complete dominance of an inning there. So he strikes out the side, ends up his velocity was unbelievable the whole game, by the way. It was the first game in his career where he was averaging 100 miles an hour on his strikeout. From the third inning, he was off and running from there.
前章で紹介した激しい衝突劇ですが、一番近くでその様子を見ていたのはドジャースのチームメイトたちでした。第2章では、ムーキー、ベッツとマックス・マンシーが大谷とラッシングのバッテリー関係について語った本音をお届けします。
Ready to hit. It comes up quick.
Which is good. That's good.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. All right. And I also want to talk about Rush a little bit. I know Rush, it's a lot for him. Seeing Smitty not there, I think I in specific took for granted how much he carried for us, especially on the pitching side. And now seeing Rush kind of going through it and seeing like how hard it is for him and how he's stepping up, and he's doing his best. Like he needs experience, right? And this is his experience, and I feel like he's learning on the fly. He is getting better. He's getting better, and it takes a little time, right? But seeing not having Smitty and seeing what he did for the pitching staff on top of hitting makes me really appreciate, wow, Will Smith really does do a lot for us. And now having Rush trying to step in and do that, that's really hard for him, especially being a rookie.
Yeah, well, let's start by saying Rush is doing an amazing job.
He's doing an amazing job.
He's doing an amazing job. But like you said, it does make you appreciate exactly what Will does. And, Will was the same when he was at that stage.
Yep, exactly.
Will had to learn. Yep. And, Will had to learn with Kirsch,
which is much tougher.
A little bit tougher, I mean, and I think, but I also think that's one of the things that was good for Will. And I think, you look at what Rush is doing with Shohei and with Yama, like it's good for him to understand. And, we talk about this in the infield all the time, like why are we calling certain pitches in these situations? And, not that we're second guessing anybody, but you start getting this feel for the game that I think Rush is still learning. Sometimes it's okay to get away from what the sheet is telling you to call. And that was the thing that I think Will learned with Kirsch a lot, because, what's Kirsch throwing? He's throwing a fastball slider, and it's going to be into a right-handed batter. Well, there's a lot of times when Will would look at the sheet and be like, well, we can't throw a slider to this guy. He hits it. And it's like, that's what Kirsch is going to throw. That's his best pitch. He needs to throw it. And I think that helped Will learn. Sometimes it's okay to go off script and, do things that maybe the data says is not what you should do. And I think, that's one thing that we would agree Rush is learning, especially with Shohei. Shohei wants to throw certain pitches in certain locations, and maybe the data says that's not the best thing to do, but, when the pitcher is convicted in doing that, you have to go off what the pitcher wants, especially when it's a guy like Shohei, Yama,
I mean, really, everybody in our staff.
Yeah.
At some point, he'll be, when Snell and all these guys get back, like he'll be catching all those guys
and
as
like,
well.
There's times where, hey, that's probably not the pitch you should throw, but that's what the pitcher really wants to throw, and so you got to let him do it, and you got to make sure you're behind him, and I think that's one of the things that Rush is learning, and it's it does make you appreciate Will, because Will's grown so much in that aspect of it that there's no second guessing what he's calling back there, and the pitchers have given full trust to Will, and I feel like Will's hardly ever shaken off. Like it's very few times, and we go to Will. One of the things I love when Yama's pitching, and I know you've seen this. Yama goes to his pitch comm, right? And he'll call a pitch, and he looks at Will, and he's like, he wants to make sure Will thinks it's a good pitch to throw. And then that's where Will is like, if that's what you want to throw, then yes.
Yeah.
Like that's
for sure.
That's the best pitch you should throw.
For sure. I knew, and then I know I want to speak a little bit about the situation in Minnesota with Rush and Shohei. Obviously, we all, everybody kind of saw it. That was really kind of I feel like a huge moment for Rush there. When they go down and whatnot, we got to go down and look at me and you down there. We just being nosy.
Nosy. Wait, what y'all doing down there?
Yeah, that's what I was being nosy, man. I was really just kind of seeing how this is going to play out. Like what was possibly going to be said.
I think it was a good growing moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously you don't want any of that to happen with your teammates, but I think it's a good growing moment for both guys because Show's not always going to be able to throw to Will,
Right.
And for Rush, he's got to learn that and this is one of those moments where it was like, hey, sometimes Show wants to throw a pitch that maybe isn't the best pitch to throw, and I think that's what Rush was kind of learning in that moment, and sometimes things can speed up during the game, and I think that's a little bit what happened there, and again, like we've said before, that's experience that you learn how to deal with that the more you've been in those types of situations.
And what I really enjoyed was like how Rush later on took accountability, and he knows that he has a lot on his plate. Like, he really knows it.
You're the catcher for a staff that's first in baseball in a lot of categories. So that's a lot on your plate, and he's done an amazing job handling it.
He's done a great job handling it, and I think he'll just keep learning. He'll just keep learning, and then as Smitty comes back, I'm sure he'll.
チームメイトたちがラッシングの成長を見守る一方で、他球団で数々の修羅場をくぐり抜けてきた元メジャーリーガーたちはこの問題をどう捉えているのでしょうか。第3章では、捕手としての役割と大谷をリードする重圧について半掘りします。
All right, guys, let's get into it. I mean, it's become the story in baseball over the last, week or so. The Dalton Rushing, Shohei Ohtani, young catcher. The narrative has been that the catcher is showing up Shohei Ohtani. Like it just how that whole thing all shook down. And then Dave Roberts kind of puts his arm around Rushing in the dugout afterwards. Freddie Freeman goes and has a chat with a young 25-year-old just finding his way in the big leagues. Ohtani said all the right things afterwards. Rushing said all the things afterwards. But Russ, you see something like that shakedown with a young catcher. What's your kind of reaction to this?
Well, your job as a catcher is to protect your pitchers, right? You never want to you're never supposed to, show your pitchers up. Just like pitchers, if somebody makes an error behind them, you don't want to see your pitcher throw his hands up or, bark at you or whatever. And as a catcher, I mean, you're facing everybody. Everybody's looking at you. So if you show bad body language and if there's one guy that you probably should never, ever show up, it's Shohei.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, arguably one of the best talents that has ever played the game. And he seems like a great teammate and a good dude. And I don't think he would ever show anybody up ever. So I don't know. I wonder what's going on. I'd like to know what the real conversation was like, before they talked to the media afterwards.
It looked heated on the mound with Shohei and Rushing. Like when the catcher went up to Shohei, even before the translator got there, even before Mark Pryor, the pitching coach, got there. Like, JD, I can't remember the last time on the field I've seen Ohtani that animated.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple layers to this, right? I think one of the layers that I will talk about first is Shohei kind of has been giving up a few runs leading up to this. And I even saw earlier in the week where he's like throwing another bullpen to try to get some feel for some pitches and work on some things. And if you know Shohei, I don't think it's not that he doesn't work, but I don't think he puts his body through more than what he should because of him hitting and pitching, right? Or whatever he thinks. So I think he's kind of feeling a little bit like he wants to right this ship. And then when he's going out there and he's got this young kid that's either they're getting crossed up or he's showing them up and it doesn't look good on TV. It doesn't look good to Shohei, because the game, if there is one game that the guy's about, everybody's talking about, it's Shohei. You're a backup catcher, first off.
Right.
Like, nobody should know your name as a backup catcher. Like, you should be, like, in the shadow. You should be catching your tail off. And I think – and here's where I kind of see this Dalton Rushing, because I watch him play. He kind of reminds me a little bit of myself, where the other team doesn't like him. He's going to play hard. He's He's playing away. He's taking guys out at second base when you're really not supposed to be taking guys out anymore. He's doing some stuff behind the plate. He's, you know, he has some antics. I'll say that. And I remember when I was a catcher coming up to the big leagues the first time, and I was, you know, I was vocal, I was loud, and Kurt Young was our pitching coach, and he'd say, JD, we don't want to hear you. We don't want to hear you. Be quiet. Just be quiet. Stay back there. Stay soft. Be quiet. I think rushing needs to take a step back and say, this isn't about me. Like, I'm the backup until, and it reminds me of a movie clip, one of my favorite movies, Bull Durham, when we're talking about the pitcher, right? And he's like, he's looking at his, his shower shoes, and he's like, they're dirty.
Yeah.
Like, it's disgusting. And he's like, when you're in the minor leagues and you're grinding, you can't have dirty shower shoes. He goes, but if you're an all-star, if you're number one, now those shower shoes mean like you're an artist or like you're creative. Like, they make it something good. Like, you're not good enough right now, Dalton, to be acting the way that you are. Like, give it some time. I'm not saying you're not a good player, but right now you're not the guy. So,
right. I mean,
you
he's got
take
the potential. He's got the potential. Like,
he does.
元選手たちが保守の流儀を熱く語る中、かつてマウンド上で同じような衝突を経験したレジェンド投手はどう見ているのでしょうか。最後の第4章では、殿堂入り投手ジョン・スモルツが語る、ピッチャーとキャッチャーの信頼関係の本質に迫ります。
All right, and I am pumped to be joined, as always, by the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. John, how are we doing this week?
Doing good. I felt like today I should probably have a jacket on, to do this podcast and spice it up a little bit.
This is getting more serious, it's getting more and more people watching, so you needed to dress it up a little bit like me today, John, I wanted to start with a Dodgers situation with Shohei, Dalton rushing his catcher now. I don't know if you saw, but in his start on Wednesday night, Will Smith is Shohei's typical catcher, but because of injuries, Dalton rushing has been catching him. And it kind of, as much as you will ever see from Shohei Ohtani, kind of boiled over a little bit in frustration with rushing behind the plate and not challenging. And Shohei pretty demonstratively tapped his head and called for a challenge and was right. And rushing had to be consoled in the dugout at points. It's just gotten to a point where it's seemingly boiled over, and you could see Shohei talking to him pretty sternly. Freddie Freeman, Dave Roberts, all having conversations with Dalton rushing in the dugout. My question to you is, can you walk us through the situation a little bit did you ever have your typical catcher and then maybe had to have, maybe not a rookie, but a younger catcher step in and catch you and kind of guide him to help you along the way? Like, this seems like a situation out in LA.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you got to get used to. And in this day and age, it's more complicated with all the information these guys are trying to process.
Yeah.
Whereas where I had Greg Olson was one of my favorite people of all time. We had an altercation on the mound. I missaw something. I didn't see a sign that he put down, and I thought he was being stubborn, and I waved him out, which was wrong on my part. And he kind of chewed me out, and the pitching coach had to come down and, you guys are best friends. Are you okay? I said, yeah, it's on me. And Greg did what I told him he should do. I said in the beginning, don't ever let a pitcher show you up. And I did it. So he lived up to what I told him, and he told me on the mound. So I was wrong. But then there's situations where you don't flow. Like I got a chance to work with Brian McCann, and he was a rookie, but it was a different approach. I walked him through everything. I was a veteran pitcher. I walked him through everything. I helped him get navigated with the big league structure. Today, there's so much information, and guys are in different stratospheres. Like, Shohei's in an atmosphere by himself. Can you imagine a young catcher just being back there going, oh my gosh, this is a franchise? So I'm sure it's taken a minute, and they'll work it out and they'll figure it out. But it's a thing. There's nothing wrong with saying it's not a thing. It's just they just have to work it out.
今回のラッシングと大谷の衝突劇は、現代のメジャーリーグにおけるデータ主義と投手の感覚の摩擦を浮き彫りにした非常に興味深い事例です。 正捕手ウィル・スミスと組んだ時の大谷の防御率は1点未満と驚異的な数字を残しているのに対し、若手のラッシングと組んだ場合は5点台を超えてしまっています。この圧倒的な差が示すのは、単なる捕手の技術不足ではなく、大谷という規格外の天才が持つマウンドでの感覚をどれだけ理解し、信頼できているかという点にあります。現代野球ではデータシートに基づいた配球が主流となっていますが、マックス・マンシーが指摘したように、偉大な投手たちが自らの投球に確信を持っている瞬間は、データを超えてその感覚を優先させるべきなのです。25歳のラッシングにとって、球界の顔である大谷をリードすることは想像を絶する重圧だったに違いありません。しかし、今回のようなサインミスやマウンド上での衝突を経験し、自らの非を認めて責任を背負う姿勢を見せたことは、彼がドジャースの正捕手へと成長するための極めて重要なステップになるでしょう。大谷の怒りは決して若手を潰すためのものではなく、勝利への強い執念と信頼関係を構築するための対話だったと言えます。皆さんは今回の衝突劇について、ラッシングの対応や今後の大谷とのバッテリー関係をどう思いますか？ぜひコメント欄で意見を聞かせてください。ここまで見てくれたあなた、本当にありがとう。この動画が少しでも面白かったら、コメントで意見を聞かせてください。そして高評価、シェア、チャンネル登録も忘れずに、次の動画でまた一緒に野球の熱狂を味わいましょう。